Shalom. I would like to share with you an amazing recent archaeological discovery from the land of Israel. In 2019, archaeologists from the Israeli Antiquities Authority in Beersheba uncovered this shard from an ancient oil lamp. The archaeologists were excited to announce they had discovered what they believe is among the oldest representations of a 9-branch menorah or candelabra ever found. This rare artifact, they believe, dates to the very end of the era of the second Beit HaMikdash, the second Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Is it possible this ancient oil lamp remnant could actually be depicting a 9-candle Hanukkah menorah, similar to what our Jewish people use to celebrate the holiday today? So far, the archaeologists have been reluctant to make this admission. If this image is truly a depiction of a very early Hanukkah menorah, is there a reason Jewish people may have been celebrating Hanukkah in Beersheba, in southern Judea of all places? Didn't the earliest celebrations of Hanukkah originally center around the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, where a great miracle of oil was believed to have happened? For those that don't fully understand, let me first help illuminate a little bit of the history of Hanukkah. 167 BCE was a time of great darkness and despair for the people of Judea. The wicked Seleucid Greek ruler Antiochus IV, known as Epiphanes, came against the Jewish people, our Holy Torah, and the lifestyle commanded by our God. His evil intent was to assimilate our Jewish people into a pagan, Hellenistic culture along with many obliging nations. He forbid our people from teaching the Holy Scriptures, banned circumcision, and ordered sacrifices of unclean animals to be performed. Building a coalition of Hellenized pagans and apostate Jews, Antiochus sought to remove everything holy and ordained by the God of Israel from Jewish society, if it were possible. At that time, Antiochus' forces took control of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, and he carried out an abominable sacrifice on the temple's holy altar. Yet even during those dark times, a righteous priest named Mattathias and his sons began to courageously fight back. Mattathias' son Yehuda, who became known as Yehuda Maccabeus, or the Hammer, because of his stature in battle, was a man who revered and worshipped the God of our ancestral heritage. In view of his reputation as a warrior, Yehuda's followers thus became known as the Maccabees. Striking back with a disproportionate number of soldiers at his side, hundreds of valiant Maccabees began to turn back the hordes of Hellenized Greek oppressors and their allies. Battle after battle, Yehuda and his followers prevailed and grew in numbers. 3 years after the temple altar had been defiled, Yehuda and his Maccabees victoriously took back the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. While they were excited to reclaim the holy sanctuary, however, they were distraught at seeing the condition of the house of God. Antiochus had defiled the sanctuary with pig's blood. Sacred Torah scrolls were destroyed, and the flesh of swine had been sacrificed, desecrating the holy altar. Yehuda and his companions immediately sought to reestablish temple worship and rededicate the temple. Nevertheless, in order for daily temple worship to be reestablished, the Maccabees required consecrated olive oil to light the sacred 7-branch menorah given to Moses, as required in our Torah. As the legend of Hanukkah relates, the men searched and searched in the sanctuary, but it appeared that all the consecrated vials of olive oil had either been defiled or destroyed by the evil Antiochus. Amazingly, they located one consecrated vial of olive oil that had been left undefiled from years before. In fact, the seal of Israel's high priest on the receptacle was unbroken. Even so, there was not enough oil in the vial to light the sacred menorah for more than one night. How could the temple be rededicated if there was an insufficient amount of oil to provide for continuous worship? But the faith of the Maccabees prevailed, and despite the perceived lack of fuel for the fire, they lit the sacred menorah anyway. Miraculously, the oil in the lampstand did not deplete after the first night. A second night passed, and the consecrated olive oil continued to burn. And then a third night went by, and a fourth and fifth night. The oil from the one consecrated vial continued to burn miraculously for 8 nights, which gave Yehuda and his men just enough time to prepare a newly consecrated batch of olive oil for the holy lampstand. After the reconsecration of the Holy Temple, an 8-day annual holiday was proclaimed by the Maccabees, marking this anniversary. What I've just described is the origin of our modern candle lighting tradition, known as our festival of Hanukkah, which is also translated as Festival of Dedication in English, the memorial of when the Holy Temple was rededicated by the Maccabees. The holiday has also become widely known as the Festival of Lights in view of the legendary provision of God's sacred light given to our people at the Holy Temple. Now, some historians and scholars aren't completely convinced that such a miraculous provision of oil and light in the Holy Temple ever took place. It has often been speculated the Maccabees relied heavily on scriptural insight from the Hebrew Tanakh to determine the proper method of how to rededicate the temple's altar. Thus, some are of the opinion that the 8-day holiday was primarily instituted not in conjunction with any miracle that may have occurred, but because the temple altar dedication process would have required 8 days to ceremonially complete. Others have suggested that the 8-day holiday instituted by the Maccabees was established only as a postponed 8-day Sukkot or Feast of Tabernacles celebration and did not have anything to do with a miracle of oil. But do contentions such as these invalidate the possibility that a great miracle of oil actually did take place in Jerusalem at that time? Although the earliest historical accounts of this period, the non-canonical books of 1st and 2nd Maccabees, don't mention any miracle of oil, both sources do clearly tell us that Yehuda and his followers did indeed light the sacred menorah lamps at the time of the altar's rededication. Unlike the golden 7-candle menorah of Moses, which the Maccabees lit in the Holy Temple, a 9-branch version of the lampstand known as the Hanukkiah eventually came into being. This was so that we might celebrate each year and symbolically reenact in our homes the miracle of light that happened in Jerusalem. There's much disagreement, however, when the first Hanukkiot came into use. As many of you know, the 8 lamps on each Hanukkiah represents the 8 days of the miracle of oil. The 9th lamp, or servant candle, represents the 1 vial of consecrated oil that produced the miracle. Now let's take a close look at what archaeologists recently discovered in Beersheba. Could what we are looking at actually be a depiction of an ancient Hanukkah Menorah? The archaeologists from the Israeli Antiquities Authority have been reluctant to admit this. What they have only been willing to say, as I mentioned earlier, is that the discovery they believe is among the earliest 9-lamp menorah representations ever to be found. In fact, this oil lamp depiction is so old that it may predate by about 100 years rabbinical restrictions in the Babylonian Talmud, which strictly prohibited duplicating the 7-branch menorah of the Holy Temple. It should be noted that archaeologists have previously discovered other depictions of lampstands from ancient Judea, some having 7 lamps, some having fewer than 7 lamps, and even some others with many more than 7 branches. The question remains what the creator of this particular oil lamp was thinking at the time the 9-candle emblem was placed upon it. To gain more historical perspective on this 9-candle depiction, let's fast forward from the era of the Maccabees about 235 years to the time when the archaeologists have dated this particular oil lamp remnant to the very end of the Second Temple period. This was yet another period in Judea's history of great darkness and distress, as our Jewish people once again had come under foreign subjugation, this time to the Romans. As a result of the amazing victories of the Maccabees, our Jewish people gained autonomy in our ancestral homeland, but only for a very short period of history. Soon thereafter, the Roman Empire quickly became the most dominant world power. There were some that ruled under the authority of the Romans that sought to curry the favor of our Jewish people. Herod the Great, the Idumean vassal king, tried to appease the people of Judea by undertaking a massive reconstruction project to rebuild and refurbish the damages to the Holy Temple caused by Antiochus. Yet over a period of time, our people became increasingly dissatisfied in having to subject ourselves foremost to the edicts of the Caesars, rather than enjoying autonomous rule in our ancestral homeland, as did the victorious Maccabees. In the year 66 CE, Jewish rebels seeking to liberate Jerusalem from Roman rule mounted what would become known as the Great Revolt. In the Roman Empire's resolve to suppress the insurrection, an estimated 1 million Jewish people would be killed within the following 4 years, including men, women, and children. In the archaeological excavations that produced our oil lamp specimen, different periods of ancient life in Beersheba came to light. Among the findings at the excavation site was evidence of mikvot, or Jewish ritual baths, clearly showing that those that settled there had not assimilated into Roman culture, but maintained a distinct Jewish cultural identity. The archaeologists also found what they believed were ancient subterranean passages where rebels could have hidden themselves. The remains of what archaeologists believe was a watchtower was discovered, which could have been used to guard against unwanted visitors. Various coins from the Roman period were discovered as well. Generally, in archaeological excavations, the deeper you dig, the more ancient the history one is able to uncover. The archaeologists maintain they identified distinct evidence of societal upheaval occurring in ancient Beersheba. They believe evidence in an upper layer of the excavation relates to the period of the revolt led by the false Messiah Shimon bar Kokhba in 132 CE. But an older layer of evidence, the archaeologists believe, shows a societal disruption that may specifically relate to the tumultuous events surrounding the year 70 CE. What exactly took place in 70 CE in Judea? In 70 CE, the great revolt of the people of Judea would come to a crushing end, as the Jewish rebels in Jerusalem were greatly outnumbered, and they could no longer put up resistance to the Roman legions. In order to utterly humiliate and punish the inhabitants of Judea, the Roman general Titus, who would eventually ascend to the emperor's throne, ransacked and ultimately destroyed the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. As boastfully depicted in artwork inscribed on the Arch of Titus, a monument to Emperor Titus that still remains in Rome to this day, the sacred treasures of the Holy Temple, including the 7-lamp golden menorah, were shamefully paraded through the streets of Jerusalem by Roman pillagers. Ultimately, Titus ordered the entire mount upon which the Holy Temple stood to be completely plowed over. No stone would be left remaining upon another. Historians have speculated that many Jewish zealots fled Jerusalem during this period and sought refuge in southern Judean towns. If what the archaeologists are maintaining is accurate, it appears that Roman soldiers pursued the Jewish rebels even as far as Beersheba and had made their lives there as miserable as possible. So let's speculate on the person that owned this particular oil lamp. Could he have been a Jewish zealot that escaped the tyranny of the Romans? Was the lamp in his possession that depicted 9 candles actually an image of a Hanukkah menorah? If so, was this displaced person celebrating Hanukkah in Beersheba? He very well could have been, as pious Jews could no longer corporately gather to celebrate Hanukkah in Jerusalem after the temple's destruction. By lighting a new lamp each night, he would have been magnifying the victorious light of the temple in dark, dark times. Like many Jewish zealots of his era, he would have longed for the days of the Messiah to come, the son of David, who could restore temple worship and liberate Jerusalem. Is it possible, however, the light of Israel's Messiah had already begun to shine during that period? It appears many of our Jewish people may still have been putting their hope during the tumultuous Roman period in the victorious light of the Hanukkah miracle, at a time when there appeared to be little light at all. Just 2 decades after the Holy Temple's destruction, the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus in the year 94 CE documented the continuing observance of Hanukkah celebrations among the Jewish people in his historical chronicle, Antiquities of the Jews. Josephus, who had himself fought in the Great Revolt against the Romans, ended up switching sides against the rebels to become a close confidant of the Roman imperial elite. The historical account of Josephus is the earliest source on record to refer to the anniversary of the Maccabees' victory as the Festival of Lights. Despite this acknowledgement, Josephus, interestingly, omits from his historical account any mention of an 8-day miracle of lights as the reason why Jewish people continued to celebrate the holiday. Some have speculated that Josephus, who was prone to ingratiating himself to Roman authorities, would have been reluctant to specify to Roman readers that Jewish people were continuing to light Hanukkah candles in their homes each year to symbolically reenact the dedication of the same holy temple that Titus had ordered to be destroyed. Prior to the dreadful year 70 CE, very few had foreseen the calamity of the destruction of the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. Did our people have any advanced premonition of the great darkness that loomed on the horizon? There was indeed a strong prophetic warning that severe judgment was on its way, but at that time, the majority of people simply were not willing to listen. As recorded by the Gospel emissary Luke, a startling prediction was given to the disciples of Rabbi Yeshua as they were admiring the splendor of the courts in the Holy Temple, approximately 37 years before the destruction by Titus. As the Gospel account reads, and while some were talking about the temple, how it was decorated with beautiful stones and offerings, Yeshua said, "As for these things you are looking at, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. Every one will be torn down." As I mentioned previously, in 70 CE, the Temple Mount was bulldozed by Titus, leaving every stone torn down exactly as Yeshua had prophesied. Yet for those who were listening carefully to Yeshua in his generation, the controversial rabbi from Nazareth had not only given our people a warning of great darkness on the horizon, but he had been revealing to us that God the Father in heaven had sent into the world merciful provision that we might endure the judgment that was to come. It was at Hanukkah, when many had come to worship at the Holy Temple in Jerusalem and celebrate the Maccabees temple consecration, that Yeshua appeared in the temple courts in hopes our people would consecrate their hearts to receive the merciful provision of the Father. As related by the gospel emissary Yochanan or John, here is the full account of what happened. Then came Hanukkah in Jerusalem. It was winter, and Yeshua was walking around inside the temple area in Shlomo's colonnade. So the Judeans surrounded him and said to him, "How much longer are you going to keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us publicly." Yeshua answered them, "I have already told you, you don't trust me. The works I do in my Father's name testify on my behalf, but the reason you don't trust is that you are not included among my sheep. My sheep listen to my voice. I recognize them, they follow me, and I give them eternal life. They will absolutely never be destroyed, and no one will snatch them from my hands. My Father who gave them to me is greater than all, and no one can snatch them from my Father's hands. I and the Father are one." Once again, the Judeans picked up rocks in order to stone him. Yeshua answered them, "You have seen me do many good deeds that reflect the Father's power. For which one of these deeds are you stoning me?" The Judeans replied, "We are not stoning you for any good deed, but for blasphemy, because you who are only a man are making yourself out to be God." At this point, Yeshua challenges his critics by quoting a passage from the 82nd Psalm. Yeshua answered them, "Isn't it written in your Torah, 'I have said you people are Elohim'? If it called Elohim the people to whom the word Elohim was addressed, and the Tanakh cannot be broken, then are you telling the one whom the Father set apart as holy and sent into the world you are committing blasphemy just because I said I am a son of Elohim? If I'm not doing deeds that reflect my Father's power, don't trust me. But if I am, then even if you don't trust me, trust the deeds, so that you may understand once and for all that the Father is united with me and I am united with the Father." One more time they tried to arrest him, but he slipped out of their hand. Yeshua, the one set apart, anointed by the Father and sent into the world. Yes, the consecrated vial of oil that had been divinely prepared to illuminate a heavenly holy temple not built by human hands. Mashiach, the son of David, set apart before the destruction of the temple, even from ancient days, as the light of the world, at Hanukkah and forever. Hag Sameach.